Hi, my name is Joseph Parker, WBO champion of the world, and you're watching Sporting Icons.
Right, I hope everybody is doing well. It's Thursday, 2 more days to go until the weekend. Everyone's excited about that, I'm sure. So, first of all, let me apologise for yesterday. There's only 2 videos that I did yesterday, and both of them, to be honest, did not very good, in my honest opinion. So, as punishment to myself today, I actually watched a new Deontay Wilder interview with ESPN. And to be honest, I'm not actually mad at him in this one. I'm really not. He actually said a lot of things that I've been saying for a long, long time. And him and his extremist fan base have been saying the complete opposite. But in this video, he's done a complete U-turn and is very, very humble in this interview, which is weird. Which I'll put in the description box for you guys anyway, once, of course, you finish listening to this video. Now, in this one, the headline of that video was Anthony Joshua should be embarrassed for losing to Andy Ruiz Jr. So right away, I'm thinking, right, okay, there's no embarrassment about losing to anybody who is a high caliber fighter like an Andy Ruiz. So I thought, right, okay, so quite clearly he's going to go in on Joshua. But what he was saying was, with the embarrassment part, which was all the hype, all the talk, he come over to America, he took over to America, he put on the show, he put huge numbers, he was talked about all around America, and then ultimately lost. Now, Wilder did say that Joshua quit, but the thing is, you see, he then goes on to talk about how it's okay to get knocked down in life, and it's how you get back up again, and all champions of the past have taken a loss. In fact, most champions become champions after they've taken a loss at some point in their career, which he's absolutely correct on. But the thing is, I mean, to say that he quit and then kind of like retract it pretty much is what he was doing, because you don't get knocked down 4 times and end up on your feet 4 times to really be called a quitter. If you're really going to quit, then you'll go down after the first one, or certainly the second one, and stay down, right? But he didn't. He kept getting back up again, which very few people do, let's be honest. But regardless of all that, listen, Anthony Joshua, he did look like he'd had enough at the end of that fight. And to be honest, I don't blame him, because whatever it was that he was trying to do, he just couldn't do it. Were there problems? Were there not? Who knows? Okay, we've already had all this discussion. For me, something was definitely wrong. But regardless of that, big up to Andy Ruiz Jr. And this is something that I was kind of hoping that Wilder was going to say, where he was congratulating Andy Ruiz Jr. and give him a lot of props. But he didn't really do that too much, outside of the fact saying that he believes that maybe Joshua overlooked Andy Ruiz Jr., where he felt Andy Ruiz Jr., which is exactly the same thing that I was saying, was always a lively opponent. He's got lightning fast hands, and if Andy Ruiz Jr. can get in on the inside of you, you're in a whole lot of trouble, because you can't outpunch him. That's pretty much what Wilder was saying. So he is correct on that point. But he was saying how a fight with him and Joshua, just because Joshua lost, doesn't mean it ain't going to happen. It doesn't mean it isn't going to be a huge fight. A lot of this is dependent on, of course, what he does over his next few fights, and of course Joshua ultimately potentially getting his titles back, and what he does after that. Then these guys come together, it's a huge fight. There is too much emphasis on the undefeated record, as Wilder was saying. Why is Wilder saying this? Well, because he knows he should have a loss on his record against Tyson Fury. Again, this is factual, okay? Partially opinion, of course, but he should have had a loss to Tyson Fury. So he knows that he is a loss waiting to happen. It will happen to him at some point. Will it happen against Luis Ortiz? Well, it's difficult to say, isn't it? But unlikely, in my opinion. Much like it's unlikely Tyson Fury is going to lose on Saturday to Tom Schwartz. Unlikely, but anything's possible. It is what it is. So for him, he's pretty much blaming Eddie Hearn for Anthony Joshua taking a loss, which is a bit weird in the sense of he's saying that because Eddie Hearn has been hyping and talking up Joshua and all this kind of thing, and now Joshua's taken a loss, it's embarrassing. But the thing is, you can't kind of like praise Andy Ruiz Jr. and say how dangerous he was, and then say it's embarrassing to lose to Andy Ruiz Jr. That's a little bit daft. But going on to the Eddie Hearn thing, bigging up and doing his job. You know, he's a promoter. Whether you like Eddie Hearn or whether you don't, he's a promoter. He's the megaphone of all his fighters. He's not going to downplay Anthony Joshua, is he? Because that isn't going to put bums on seats, is it? That isn't going to take 8,000 Brits and Irish and from various parts of the world to go to Madison Square Garden, is it? If he's just going to play down the fight. Of course not. He has to praise up Anthony Joshua. And Anthony Joshua he didn't really need a lot of praise because his record speaks for itself. His record is the best in the heavyweight division. Let's not hide behind it. Taking one loss doesn't extinguish your entire resume. Of course it doesn't. You know, he's still got a Klitschko on his resume. Wilder doesn't have a Klitschko on his resume. Joshua's got a Joseph Parker on his resume. He's unified twice, held 3 of the 4 main titles. Joshua did all this, something that Wilder has yet to do, when Wilder's had 20 fights more. So Wilder can say there on this interview, and listen, he quite openly says, I've been sitting back for a long time watching the landscape. Which is very honest of him, because from my point of view, and what I've been saying about him for a long time is, yes, you have been sitting back, you have been lurking in the shadows. Again, he has admitted to this. Rather than being in the mix of the action, as in creating the hype for the heavyweight. You've had to wait for Tyson Fury to dethrone Vladimir Klitschko when you had first refusal of that one. And after, because Tyson Fury went through whatever he went through, Anthony Joshua then picked up the pieces and built an empire for heavyweight boxing. Of course, Wilder was part of that because he had the last piece of the jigsaw. So, of course, Wilder was along for the hype train ride, but without ever having the intention of fighting Anthony Joshua. Because I'm pretty sure he's got to be sat there now looking at this fight thinking, you know, I could be sat here right now as undisputed heavyweight world champion and a extremely healthy bank balance. Listen, I'm sure he's already got a very healthy bank balance, but an extremely one. Okay, where not only would he have a hell of a lot of money, but he would get all the plaudits. It would be him that would be going on all the talk shows. It would be him that would be with all the top American producers and that, like Andy Ruiz currently is on right now. Andy Ruiz, of course, is meeting the Mexican president and things like that. And Wilder, that could have been him. Not necessarily with the Mexican president, but people of that kind of status. He could have been in there. The whole boxing world will be looking at Wilder saying, man, you are the #1 in the division. You had the opportunity, but unfortunately he didn't take it. Whether it was him that was scared, or he wasn't confident, or whether it was his team who's laid out this plan for him and whatever, and he's trusting his team for the plan, whatever it may be, he had first refusal of this fight and didn't do it. Now, just because Andy Ruiz Jr. beat Joshua on that night does not mean Wilder would have done that. That old saying, styles make fights, anything can happen. Maybe Joshua did overlook Andy Ruiz Jr. Again, this is what Wilder's pretty much saying. But ultimately, Joshua would have been more up for this fight with Wilder. And it wouldn't have been a 5-week preparation time for Wilder. Wilder wouldn't have had 5 weeks either. These guys would have had a proper training camp. These guys would have been hyping for a long, long time and then had the fight. But again, it may not have been in America. Maybe Josh was one of these guys from Britain who can't travel. We have plenty of British, unfortunately, who are very, very good here in the UK. They'll beat anybody. But you put them in a ring outside the UK for whatever reason, they just can't perform. The occasion gets to them. Maybe this is what happened with Joshua. Again, all speculation. So there's no guarantees that Wilder would have beaten Joshua, regardless of what the Wilders say. There's no guarantees that Wilder would have beaten Joshua. None whatsoever. Likewise, there's no guarantees that Joshua would have beaten Wilder. Based on that last performance, probably not. But you never know, because Joshua's mindset would have been different. He'd have prepared different. Everything would have been different. Wilder knows this. He isn't going to admit it. Much like Tyson Fury isn't going to admit it either. But Joshua, he will be rematching Andy Ruiz Jr. at the end of the year. Wilder looks like he's going to be fighting Luis Ortiz, even though he announced that in the week up to Joshua taking on Ruiz. Why? To try and distract Joshua. And of course, on the day before the fight, he announced that he's going to be fighting Tyson Fury as well. So again, it's all part of the parlor tricks. All of it was designed to tell Joshua, I'm not fighting you. So if you beat Andy Ruiz Jr., no point calling me out, because listen, my diary is already full. So maybe that, who knows? Maybe that affected Joshua. I don't know. If it did, congratulations to Deontay Wilder. But in some ways, it's a pretty bad move, because now you've lost out on this huge payday. Or at least for the moment, now you're going to have to rely on Joshua to not only get his belts back, but to build momentum again. And then you guys get in and put that night down on June the 1st as an experience, an off night, whatever it may be. But Anyway, it is what it is. So Wilder, he didn't quite really upset me in this interview. I thought he would. But he was quite honest about it. He was saying that people take a loss. It happens. It's heavyweight boxing. One punch changes everything. And there's nothing wrong with taking a loss. It's how you come back. All fighters take a loss, or at least 99.9% of them take a loss, especially when they're fighting the top guys. You're going to take a loss at some point, but how do you come back? That is what makes a champion. And I can agree with Wilder on that point. But anyway, for Joshua to be embarrassed, there's nothing to be embarrassed about losing to Andy Ruiz Jr. None whatsoever. Much like if Wilder lost to Luis Ortiz. It's not... I don't want to say that it's not embarrassing, because it is a little bit, because Luis Ortiz has already lost to Wilder, and Luis Ortiz has looked terrible over his last 2 fights. So, in my opinion, I think Luis Ortiz is way past it now. He's too old. But at the same time, maybe Luis Ortiz didn't look too good because of the opposition that he was fighting. He wasn't motivated. Put him in there with Wilder, he's going to be more motivated. Maybe. So who knows? Maybe Luis Ortiz is going to stop Wilder or beat him on points. You never know, but in my opinion, very unlikely. But for Joshua to be embarrassed, no, I don't think he's got anything to be embarrassed about. Eddie Hearn was doing his job. Anthony Joshua didn't do his job on the night. That's all it is. Anyway, you drop your thoughts below about it, click thumbs up, and of course subscribe. Catch you all on the next video.